This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
Welcome back, everybody, to Let's Talk About Scams. I'm Joyce Petrowski, founder and president of R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. You can find more resources on our website at roseadvocacy.org. You can sign up for our newsletters via email and or in the mail. And you'll also find our social media channels on there as well. And you're going to want to go to the events tab. We have our third annual Golfers for Senior Protection Tournament coming up on Friday, April 11th. And we are looking for some more golfers. You can use the discount code BOARD. That's B as in boy, OARD as in dog. And you can save some money on your golf registration. So today we're going to talk about antivirus, malware, and endpoint detection and response. And I have a guest, Lynn Edgington. So let's welcome Lynn.
Hi, Joyce. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being here. And so why don't you first introduce yourself? Tell us what you've done.
My name is Lynn Edgington, and I'm the former founder and president of Eagle Research Associates. We were a 501c3 nonprofit corporation that basically we educated the public about all the different types of investment cybercrime that was taking place, as well as working with law enforcement officers and agents worldwide in their investigations. And so we actually formed in 2008, and we dissolved our nonprofit at the end of 2020. But prior to that, I had 4 years of researching this particular part of the industry that's out there, and it became something that we knew we had to do. The FBI announced in 2007 that they were getting rid of 1,800 of their white-collar crime investigators. And we knew that was a license to steal. And so like-minded individuals, we formed Eagle, and we were approved in February of 2008. And to give you an idea what we were talking about, when that announcement came out, it came out in March of 2007. There were approximately because we're in the early stages at this point, and it was probably about 2,500, maybe 4,000, somewhere in that range of the different types of investment cybercrime.
Okay.
From March, when that announcement was made, until September, that jumped over 15,000. It just was, and we knew it was going to happen because I had a group of people that we were on all the forums that were available where these things were promoted. And so we saw what was going on, and we knew something had to be done, and law enforcement would be overwhelmed, which they were. And so that's why we formed Eagle.
Okay. All right. So you helped law enforcement basically put their cases together, try to figure out where these the criminals were at that were participating in these investment schemes and scams and things of that nature?
Yes, what we would do is that we would go and take screenshots of their web pages.
Mm,
We did. We would do copies of their uh, when they would go on YouTube and they'd do videos. If they
right.
were on the forums, we take screenshots of the forums when they were talking about the program, so we could
Yep.
identify. Of course, a lot of times they were using fake names, and
Right.
so we would then find out what we'd go back in. I can't get into all of it, but the
Right.
thing is that we would be able to go in and we would start doing the research as to locating where they were located, who the players
Got it.
were, strip away the fake name to find the real person, and then we would
Got it.
pass all that information on to law enforcement so they would be able to decide whether or not there was enough information for them to bring criminal charges.
Got it. Okay. And you have since closed Eagle down, correct?
Correct.
Right. And so today I wanted to talk about antivirus, malware, and endpoint detection and response. And I don't even know if we really even call it antivirus anymore. I'm hearing from a lot of cybersecurity people that that term is outdated. It's malware is more the term that encompasses antivirus, or maybe it's too different.
No, that's true. It's like everything else from 2004 when I first started getting involved in this and finding out and learning all about it until 20, and when I dissolved Eagle in 2020, they constantly change and the programs changed, the way they put them together changed. And the sad thing is they got really good at what they did. In the beginning, it was a lot easier than it was later because they, like everything else, they honed their skills and they increased their ability to avoid detection. And
Right.
so it was a cat and mouse game for us. I mean, it really was challenging to be able to do it. The same things happen here. Uh, there's still viruses out there, but they've now morphed it into malware, adware, spyware, because that's really what encompasses where the virus is coming from and where it's
Okay.
you know part of that group. And then we have the other elements that come on board from there, and that's when you get the computer hacking, and then you get into all the other things that are going on with the hacking, and then you get the ransomware and all those other things that start coming into play. But the entry level is like everything else. There's an entry level, then they go advanced, and the further they get in, the more advanced they get. And the tragic news is that while you can be protecting your personal identity, if they get into a company that you do
Right.
business with, they got your information. You're a subject, and you are now exposed to having identity theft. And we've had Verizon, we've had AT&T, we've had Comcast, we've had go down the
T-Mobile.
list of major companies and healthcare companies and Social Security of all things. We've had the FTC. Even the FTC was hacked. And
Wow.
so, if you've had any dealings with any of those agencies, and like I said, the medical records were huge. And the problem with medical identity theft is it's so hard to get it cured because the laws that are put in place to protect you work against you when you're trying to prove you're not the person that did this is not you.
All
And
the
so
HIPAA,
it
right?
becomes three times as more difficult to resolve that than it does just identity theft.
Wow. Okay. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. There's all those confidentialities and HIPAA and all those things that come into play when you're talking about medical. But you're right as far as you can control what you information you put online that you are voluntarily putting out there, like on social media, and you can protect your devices with the antivirus, the malware, EDR, all that stuff. But if you do business with another company and that other company gets breached or hacked into, and that's interesting because I just recently switched cybersecurity companies last fall, and with this new one, we talked about that, right? And they walked me down that path, and even as far as like with our auction coming up, with our golf tournament, we have an auction email, and anybody that has access to that email, that can get in that email, needs to go through the cybersecurity training, right? And same with like my grants person who has a grants email with R.O.S.E advocacy, she needs to go through that cybersecurity training, because if they compromise her, they could get into R.O.S.E, correct?
Absolutely. And the ironic thing about the whole thing is it's always from an employee that
Mm.
gets an email, doesn't bother to really check to make sure it's the email from the person who says they sent it. And
Right.
that once they open it up, they've now breached, and how far they can get into the company depends on who that person is.
How much
So the
access
lower
they have.
level person, they can get to the lower level, but they can't get to until they can get, but they can get the
Right.
company roster. Now they've got the emails, and so then they can start sending emails making you think that it's from somebody like an executive officer of the
Right.
company, and
CEO.
people are going to go, "Oh my gosh, the president or the
Right.
CFO is wanting this information. I got to get it to him," and they
Right.
do it, and they don't realize it's not really from the president, the CFO, or whoever they're portraying to be.
Right. And even with outside of emails, right? So I think last summer when they talked about the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, that over 1 million Medicare users' information was breached. It wasn't the centers itself, it's that they contracted out some of their services to a
Right.
third party, and that third party was breached, which then led to over 1 million Medicare users' information being breached.
True.
So yeah, so it comes in that aspect too. But let's talk about the so the title of this is antivirus, malware, and endpoint detection and response, not just for your desktop, because I think a lot of people, and I think they are now thinking of it with laptops and stuff like that, because a lot of people with their remote working and traveling, their laptop is their desktop type of office. But what about iPads? What about your mobile phones, right? What about if you have an online gaming system, right, where you play games in real time with people? I mean, is it really anything that's connected to the internet? You should really have this type of protection on there.
Absolutely. And the amount of protection you have really depends on what your need is. Everybody has a different set of what they do online versus not online.
Right.
One of the most interesting statistics that I actually saw was kind of shocking is that we all have smartphone, and whether it's an Apple or whether it's Android, whatever, you got a smartphone, and people don't realize that phone calls are only 4% of the use of the phone. The rest of it's texting,
That's
it's
interesting.
online banking, it's website browsing, it's all these other functions that you do because you got a mini computer in your hand. And that
Exactly.
phone has more power than the all of the computers to put the man on the moon. And it's sitting in the palm of your hand. And that was in a room that was probably 30 to 40 feet long and about 15, 20 feet wide of computers that were putting together the formula for the space for us to be able to go to the moon. But you got
Wow.
it in the palm of your hand. You have more computing power in the palm of your hand than they did in those computers. That's how
Wow.
far we've advanced. And so any phone you have, if you're doing online banking, I mean, anything you do online, you need to have it because it's an entry point that they can access. And the thing that amazes me is that we warn people that when you go on social media, put as little information out there as you possibly can,
Absolutely.
because I can get your date of birth just from going to your Facebook page or your
Absolutely.
Instagram or what Pinterest, you name it. I
Mhm.
can get access to your information, and I know how old you are because I know when your birthday is because you tell me. I
Exactly.
don't have
And
to look it up. You tell me.
we tell you who our relatives are, our
Well,
you know
absolutely.
our
We get a
parents.
picture of where we are, what we do. Uh,
Absolutely.
I'll give you a classic example. I had a friend of mine that he was going on a trip, and I said, "No,
Mhm.
no, don't tell anybody you're going out of town." He goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because you're setting yourself up to be robbed." And he goes, "No, no, no. I live in a really safe area." And I go, "I'm just telling you, you can't do it. You're going to
Absolutely.
expose yourself." They go. He comes home, and his apartment was broken into
Wow.
because they knew when he was going and they knew when he was coming home.
Right. I have a
And he
lot of
called me,
friends
and he was
that
stunned.
Right. That they get ready to, if they're just even going for a long weekend or if they're going for a vacation, right? They post and it's the map of, that they're getting ready to get on a plane and they're from Phoenix and it shows, where they're going on the map. And
Oh yeah,
sometimes, they'll say, oh, we're going to be gone for 2 weeks or whatever. And you don't think about it because on the surface, it's like, oh, I'm just sharing this, right? I'm going on vacation. What harm can that cause? But you have to
exactly.
stop and think about it. And if there is nobody else at home, right, then you're leaving it open. But still, if you have other people at home, you don't necessarily want to be inviting somebody to come over to do bad things, right? With
Exactly.
if you have people at home, right? So what type of do pretty much, I know there's a ton of different companies that sell this type of software, and they have some free versions and pay and a bunch of different paid versions and stuff like that. Is there have they pretty much are they all on board with having it for your mobile phone?
Yes,
Um, okay.
almost every of the companies I know of that's uh, in this industry and dealing in this particular market, they all have the ability because they know that it's a computer. Let's get real. Your phone is a phone in name only because it really is a computer. And so they recognize, and so they do have it. So it's set up that you can put it on your phone, you can put it on iPads, you can put it on notebook. You can do anything that's electronic that connects to the internet. Their software will work on those packages. So it's important that you have it because I'll give you an example of some things that you really why you need it. Because if you, like you mentioned before, about people are going to more laptops than they are to the PC. Well, if you use the Wi-Fi that's free at a local coffee shop and you're
Yep.
sitting there can be a person sitting within 5 feet of you, and it's called sidejacking. And they can put a device in the side of their port and they can watch you log on because you're on a public
You're in a
access.
public.
They can watch you log on. They get your password. They get all your information. They're looking at you and they're there with you in real time.
Just as if
You
they were
have no
sitting
clue they're doing it because they're not looking over your shoulder, but they're
Nope.
looking over your shoulder, but they're doing it from 5 to 6 feet away.
Yep.
But they can do it. It's the same thing that we warn people about when they go to the store with credit cards. There's
Mhm.
card readers that
Absolutely.
they do not have to see you do anything. They can walk by with a device and it'll pull up every card that you got in your wallet or in your purse.
Yep.
I mean, it's scary the things that they do. And of course, we see this of course, we're aware of it because of the black market. And we know the dark web has it. And we know
Right.
where those sites are. We know who, pretty much what all they, and what the new product, because they keep coming out with new products every week. And
Mhm.
so you so you have to stay on top of it so you can alert law enforcement. And so what we would do with law enforcement is we would go to them and say, okay, here are the 10 or 15 major Ponzi's that we know are pyramid scheme or whatever it is, for whatever form it takes. You tell us which ones you are more interested in because they can't do them all. There's a limited amount of people and a limited amount of time.
Right.
And so they come back to us and would tell us, here's the ones that we're interested in knowing more about. And then we would go start gathering the information and sending it to them. So that's how we would help them with their research. And and we enjoyed doing it because we knew it was critical that it be done.
Mhm.
And, but again, we have to be 2 steps in front of what the bad guys are doing as much as we possibly can. And
And that's hard, right?
sadly,
And
we're
that's hard
not 2 steps ahead of most of the time.
right. That's extremely difficult to do because most of the time you don't know what's going on until you see stuff on the dark web, the black market,
Right.
or heard that people have fallen victim to it, right? You can
Exactly.
anticipate. And so that's what's really good about this antivirus and malware and EDR is it's there to protect you, right? And I think I want to go as far as to say it's not 100% accurate. There are some, emails that could slip through. So you still have to watch, but it gives you just an increased sense that, you know, you're more secure than you used to be if you have this enabled. And one of the things we tell people and is that no matter what device you have it on, you have to make sure that it's running 24/7. I remember when antivirus first came out, you could get it and it would be like on the bottom of your computer. And whenever you thought about it, or if you had it on your calendar, you would go down and click on it and tell it to scan your device. So it was only scanning your device when you told it to. Um, is it pretty much now the programs are just automatically always 24/7 scanning, or do they still have some services out there that are manual that you actually have to go in and tell it?
A lot of the freeware is still manual. If
Okay.
you go to the paid subscription, you can set up when you want it to scan and the frequency of scanning because it's built into the software package. So you can tell it when you want your system to be scanned. And depending on how much you expose yourself online depends on how frequently you want to scan your system. But it always
Right.
runs in the background. So if something happens, it'll pop up and tell you something's come on. But uh, back in 2004 and up to about 2012, uh, there was no need for people to have to pay for the software because it was doing its job during that framework of time. But
Mhm.
from 2000, about middle of 2012 coming forward, every year after that, it just kept accelerating and accelerating. And we were like, the freebies don't do it anymore. It's nice, but they come down so much in price for the basic protection that you really need for probably 80% of the people.
Mhm.
It's not that expensive. But on the other side, depending on how much you do and how much what you're exposing yourself to and how many see what you want to do is the price will depend on how many different uh,
Devices.
devices that you have that you
Got it.
need to have it protected on. So you can get one for one device, 2, 3, 5, 7, 12. So you
Right.
know what your how many devices you need to have that software on. And so that package will, as you add more devices to it, the price will go up. But
Okay.
again, if you only got 3 devices, it's not that expensive and it doesn't, and you can actually get up to five or six devices without it being that expensive. And
Okay.
so again, but it comes back to which one of the many programs are out there that's going to best suit your needs. Now, the thing
Right.
that we did was is we had to do it is we don't, we had more than one. I had 3 major ones and I had 3 other ones in the background that I didn't run all the time, but every once in a while I would run them because they will sometimes one of them would pick up something that the other one missed. And because of the sensitive nature we were dealing with and the stuff that we had to deal with, we could not take a risk of having our systems compromised. So
Right.
somebody said, well, you got overkill. And I said, well, not really when you consider what we do. Uh,
True.
I mean, we knew we had to have that protection going in. And
Right.
fortunately, because we were a nonprofit, a lot of the companies, they said, look, we like what you're doing. And
Mhm.
so we are going to donate to you the software so we could afford to have those many programs that are available to put on all of our devices so that we knew we were protected no matter what device we were using.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
that helped a lot.
Right.
It saved us thousands of dollars, to be honest with you, because
Right.
there's one program that wasn't even available to the public. It was strictly uh, top 500 companies in that are available to because the software is so expensive that they were the only ones that could afford it. And they allow us to, they had we actually had a test version put on our system so they could monitor to see what our threats were on a regular basis. And of course, it fluctuated depending on what we were doing at the time and what exposure was getting when a particular Ponzi would get taken down. Then the hits
Right.
would go up dramatically. So we were kind of beta testing for their home market, and now they've now entered into the home market where back in 2005, they weren't even in the home market. They didn't come on the home market until somewhere around 2015,
Right.
2016. But we were
Right.
one of the first ones. There were others using it, but we were because of what we were doing was so unique, we knew we would test it to its maximum. So they allow
Exactly.
us to have that software. So
Yeah.
like I said, we were blessed to be able to have that way.
Yeah. So what we normally suggest to people in the presentations and, in our newsletters and social media and stuff about this topic is because there's so many companies out there that provide this service at a variety of different subscription levels. Um, and everybody's situation is different, right? Like my situation and needs would be different than like what yours was, 10 years ago, right?
Right.
Um,
Oh, yes, most definitely.
so you have to look at different ones and you have to evaluate what they offer, what their price points are. And so we just suggest to go into their internet search bar and say best antivirus malware programs for 2025. And a lot of these tech companies like PC Magazine, then that's just one in particular, but there's a bunch of them that actually they go in on a regular basis and they evaluate these programs and they give you like their top 8 or 10 picks and they give you the pros and cons and they have different subscription levels and they will then usually have a link directly to the company's website and they'll have a discount code, right, that you can then use
Yeah.
to get the product. So they've kind of done a lot of the research for you, for you to then go in and evaluate different things. Is that really the best way for just a general consumer to try to search out what would be best for them?
Absolutely. Because what they do is they get the creme de la creme, because this is what they do. I mean, this is what they're based on. They deal with computers, they deal
Mhm.
with phones, so they know what software is going to be compatible to all the devices that are out in the marketplace, and so they can tell you which ones are better. Because there's some that are really good for the Windows program, and there's other ones that are really better for the Apple program. So
Right.
you gotta look and see which device are you using and which one would be the best for you depending on whichever product you're using. That determines really sometimes which one you really need to go with. But what I found is that almost all of the top 10, maybe, well, actually the top 25,
Mhm.
they do both. They do Windows and they also do Apple products. So
Okay.
because they've been forced to go there. Years ago, Apple liked to tout the fact that they were hack proof. They were safe and secure. And it's like, well, no, the only reason why you're not being hacked is because you're not big enough. There's not enough of you. You don't have enough devices in the marketplace for it to be worthwhile for them to come after you because you're peanuts compared to the Windows operating system because that's what the 98% of the market at that time was Windows. So I said,
Right.
but when you get big enough, you're going to start finding security flaws. Well, Apple's had just in the last 4 years, Apple's had 37 upgrades to their system where they found security flaws in their Apple product. Why? Because
People
they were not hack
exploiting.
foolproof. They were able to be hacked. And so
Right.
it was a wake up call for them. And again, you see the trends that are coming and you can say, well, you get big enough and they're going to come after you because they're going after anybody and everybody that
Right.
when the volume gets to the level, because why would I want to spend, hours, 100 hours working on maybe targeting 100,000 computers when I can spend the same amount of time and get 25 million.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so
It's a numbers game.
it comes back to context as to what's the size of the market that you're going after and what do you want to penetrate and how bad do you want to get in there.
Right.
And like I said, Apple's now at the place where they're feeling the pain that all the Windows and everybody's has been facing all this time. And
Yeah.
the sad news is it's not going away. It's getting worse.
It's getting
And
worse,
there's
fortunately.
it is amazing to me that I can look at this stuff and I have access to a lot of people that work in cybersecurity, and they come back to me and they're telling me about it. And these guys are the top-notch computer whizzes going, and they're
Mhm.
coming back and saying, "There's times when we feel like we're a mile behind them. We're trying to play catch up
Wow.
because they're advancing so much because they got they got these young kids that are computer whizzes, and they're willing to work for peanuts. And so that they pay them peanuts. But they also know that if they get shut down, they're not going to face any really serious time because they're minors, and therefore they're not going to face any jail time. They're going to get a slap on the wrist, and they're going to go out the back door and back at 3 blocks down from where they got raided, and they're going to go back, and they're going to be right back in business within 2 hours or 3 hours max. So again, this is the problem that they're facing. And so what they've been doing is they've been going after the people that got caught and say, come work for us.
Oh, okay.
And so they're now pulling them into the best, on the good side of the law, and saying, help us prevent this from happening because you were on the other side of the fence. You know what you're doing. So come over and help us and educate us. So that's what they're now doing. They're actually taking these people, and once they're going to them and say, we don't want them in prison. We want them to come work for us. If you let them, if they'll come work for us, they don't face prison time. And so that's what they're doing to get them on board so that they can keep up with what's happening in the marketplace.
Wow. Wow. Okay. This endpoint detection and response, that's kind of a newer area when my understanding is that the malware and that looks for known threats, but this endpoint detection and response is more of a behavioral. It's looking at behaviors and then making a determination of, okay, this looks suspicious based on its behaviors.
There's so many facets that the new software is coming that they brought online. And what you're talking about is that's one of many that they're working on.
Okay.
One of the problems you have is there's a lot of things they're doing, but they can't tell it publicly because they don't want the bad guys know that they're onto them. And
True.
so they don't. What they'll do is they quietly send the information to the companies that are doing the virus protection, the malware, the spyware, and what they do is they feed that information to them so they can increase and enhance their products, and then they come out with a new release. And it just looks like, oh, well, we were working on this, and this is our new version because it's public information. They're out there in the marketplace. Right. And so they but the thing is that it's amazing to me the number of people that don't realize how much they're exposing themselves to. We talk about privacy and how important it is. And I can tell you, I can go into any store and I can listen to 150 phone conversations on their phone. And if I got a side jack, I can pick up everything they're doing. And especially if they're going online, just like on a computer, I can get them to access their phone. But privacy, I understand why they think they're private, but when you're announcing it to the world, anybody within hearing shot of where you're talking, they're going to find out a lot of information that you really don't want them knowing because you don't know who you're standing next to and who's listening.
Exactly.
And that's the scary part about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was so when someone is looking for, even if they're going on, they've Googled or whatever search engine, best antivirus malware EDR for 2025, and they're looking at one of these articles and trying to decipher what's going to work best for them. Are there certain, like when they're comparing the different plans that they should be looking for? And I think as we talk about this, we're going to put a graphic up as to how to compare plans.
Yeah, it's not as complicated as you think it would be.
Okay.
It boils down to what are you doing online? How much exposure are you actually exposing yourself to? Because most people don't have any concept of how much they really are exposing themselves to. But it's like we go back to the beginning when I was saying, if you're doing online banking, if you're searching the web, you're doing Amazon, you're doing all this shopping online and doing all this stuff, your exposure goes up exponentially. The more you do with your phone online, the more exposure you have. So when you look at the programs, you want to see which ones cover the basic needs the things that I'm doing. And here you can see this happened to be, this one happens to come from Malware. They're one of the top 20. Actually, they're always consistently in the top 20. But you can see the differences to what each of the different programs offer. And what isn't shown here on this chart is down below. There's still more information down below. That the
Uh-huh.
first two lines, they go down pretty far down. But of course, the ultimate is everything. And then you go to the plus. It's about it's maybe 5, 6 things that are short of what the ultimate. Actually, it's probably more than that. It's probably about 10 things that are critical if you're, depending on what your usage is, that it makes it worthwhile to go to the ultimate. The bottom line is anybody that's the majority of people listening to this can either go to the plus or the standard is going to be more than adequate for their need. But again, it's that rare individual that's doing a multitude of things that need to protect themselves, and they can look and see how critical, if it's worth the ultimate plan. And there's a lot of people
Right.
that there is a need for that. And each one of the programs will have that kind of a checklist. So what you do is you go look at Malwarebytes. You can go into any of the other ones. There's Norton, Bitdefender, McAfee,
Right.
Sophos. I mean, go down the list. I can name even more. But the thing is you look at their screen showing what they cover with the basic price point that they have. So they're all going to have this range of products and range of services for what you pay for. So then you look at them side by side and you can say, what's this? You can also go to a site and you can say you want to compare, and you put in the information about each of the programs, and it'll have a graph come up and it'll list every one of them, and you can go line by line and see how they match up against each other, so you know which one's going to give you the best bang for your buck.
Nice. Okay. I noticed on that the middle plan when it was up there, not the ultimate, the plus, I think it was.
Yeah, plus.
It had device security, which is what you want at a minimum, is what you want. But it also said the VPN, the virtual private network. So I've heard a lot about if you are someone who, even though we say do not use the public Wi-Fis, even so, I'm going to use like hotels, for example. When you go and you're staying in a hotel, they're going to say, no, it's a secure Wi-Fi, it's password protected. Well, I look at it and say, okay, it's got a password, but how many thousands of people know that password?
Exactly.
Everybody that's staying there knows that password, right? And it's easy enough for them to get your name, your last name, and if you have to put your room number in, right? But still, so even if they say it's password protected, you have to look at it and go, yeah, but if they only change their password once a week or once every other week, I mean, you're just talking about everybody that stayed at that hotel or went to that hotel for lunch or something, right?
Yes. Well, the
That's
good
going to
news
now
is
know that password. So it is like a public Wi-Fi.
it is, but the good news is that they do change the passwords on a more frequently basis now. The last I heard, the hotel association was having password changed. They would notify the people in the rooms that it was changing every 4 hours.
Oh, that's nice.
And
That's really
so it was something where, because if you wanted to log in, you couldn't get in. So they give you the new password.
right.
And so you could log in. But no matter where you are, when you're out on your phone, I've got VPN on every device we have.
Right. I have it on my
And
phone.
yeah, and you really want it for the simple reason is because they can't ping you and get your exact location and get your IP address off of that, because it's a fake. It's a valid IP number, but it goes nowhere.
Got
It's what we call throwaway number, and every computer, every phone has
an
an
IP.
IP address, and this is a block that they've set aside. And when you know what it is, you can spot it. I can tell you when somebody's using a VPN just by looking at their IP, because we
Okay.
know which
Well,
blocks they're using and where they're located. Excuse me.
so it protects your location.
Yep.
Um,
And
but
it also
also,
prevents your phone from being able to get to reverse back to your phone to get not only get your location, but actually get inside your phone through your IP. because
Got it. Okay.
it's sending a false IP out.
Okay,
It's
because
supposed to
that's
transmit
how they're gonna get into your phone is through your IP
Yep.
address. And it also any data that you're sending, emails, text messages, any getting online, that stuff is all supposed to be encrypted on the VPN. Is that accurate?
There's some are and some aren't. But
Okay.
right now, I would tell you 99.9% of VPN is all encrypted.
Okay.
There's a few out there that still haven't done it, but I don't. I mean, there are a few, but I don't even know who they are anymore because it's become so critical that they had to make that switch and make that change.
Okay.
But the biggest thing is you excuse me, you constantly want to. I change my location about once every. It depends on what device I'm on. If I'm on my computer, on my desktop, I'm changing my location about once every 30 minutes. If it's on my phone, I'm changing it once about every hour.
So
I don't use. Go
you're
ahead.
changing your location
Yep.
through the
And the reason
VPN.
yeah, I just go in and I select a different location, and
Right,
it sets up a new IP address for where that
Right.
VPN is located.
Right.
And the reason why I do that is because people are going to flip out when they hear this. I didn't even have a smartphone until October of 2023.
Really?
Really. And there's a
Wow.
reason why.
Well, the work you
I
did.
Now I had a flip phone that
Uh-huh.
did have email capability and it did have texting capability,
Okay.
but the problem was I would get thousands of emails and I would get thousands of text messages. And if they sent it what they called special, I could delete it, but it cost me $10 for every one that I deleted.
Oh,
Now
geez.
we're going back. So,
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm sitting there and I'm going, why do I need it when I can't use 70% of what this program has allowed me to do? I can't use it on my phone because it shuts my phone down.
Okay.
And it's like, so all the time when I was doing Eagle, I never had a smartphone because I couldn't use the services to do it. So because of COVID, we were still settling cases that were in the mix and during COVID that didn't finish up until September of 2024 because
Wow.
it took that
Okay.
long to get it through the court systems to finally get the cases resolved. And
Right.
so I finally said, okay, but the thing is, nobody knew I had a smartphone. I didn't know I could take texting because always before it would not take a text. So when I kept the same number, but I thought, okay, I'm probably now gone for 20 years. They haven't figured, they know that I don't do texting, so they're not going to figure it out. And to this day, I still don't get texting from them. So I probably just blew it because now they know.
Well, yeah, I was going to say.
But the bottom line is, there's not going to be that many. They're more interested in trying to shut my computer down than they are my telephone because they know I don't make that many. I actually use the phone to call people. It's rare, but I'm one of those. Look, let's be honest. This gray hair is there for a reason.
So, you brought up flip phone, that you had a flip phone that you were able to email and text. And when I see a lot of the older adults that they have flip phones. So if you're able to email, then you're connected online.
Yep, you need to have protection.
Okay. So see, I was under the impression the flip phones were there for a reason because they were not online.
Well, they were initially. That's the way they were, but in when was it? 2012, 2014 is when they started. You could get internet. You could do the texting, and you could do email on your phone. Even though it was a flip phone, you could do it because they advanced it that much. At one point, I had my original flip phone that I got in 1994.
Oh, wow.
And I had it, and then I had the one I had that flip phone from, I got it like in 2010, I think it was. That was about 2010, 2011 is when they were starting to be able to use the flip phone. You could do texting. It's been so long now, I'm trying to remember the exact dates. But I even still have it to this day. So I got my original phone, and I got the last phone that I had was a flip phone. I still have it.
Well, now some of the cell phone providers, don't they offer like malware and antivirus as part of their subscription plans?
They're
Or is
starting
that
to.
more, pardon me, they're starting to?
Yeah, they're starting to.
Okay.
In fact, we just received notification that our electric company is considering setting up where they're going to start offering internet service.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's still in the planning stages. They're not sure if they're still going to do it or not, but they're seeing the need to be able to provide that service to their customer base.
Okay.
Because there's some areas where they can't, there's certain areas where that's the only way they would be able to have internet service.
Okay.
And so this is a way to serve that community. Then the question is it a large enough volume for them to be able to pay for the cost of having it done? But they're hoping, and I know what they're doing. They're hoping but they're going to go competing. Look at every one of the phone companies now. All of them are offering internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
You got T-Mobile, you got Verizon. They've all are offering Wi-Fi home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they keep evolving just like everything else evolves. And so but again, they're keeping up with the marketplace and meeting the demand that people are wanting. And so consequently, they're now offering those services as part of their package deals.
Got it. But
But
so
the
it sounds
thing right now is the phones are a little more expensive than doing one of the other software programs that's offline that you can add to your phone.
so
But
yeah, just like anything, right? It's usually more expensive when it first rolls out, but then as it's out there and getting used and stuff, then prices have a tendency to come down.
I was going to tell you, there's one thing that we didn't talk about that is now becoming a need, is your smart TV.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm glad you brought that up.
Now think about smart TV, think about your refrigerator, your smart refrigerator, your smart car. And they're hacking cars and they're hacking refrigerators. I read an article that blew my mind. There were 3,000 people who had their smart toothbrushes hacked, and they got into their computer system because of the smart toothbrush.
Because it's connected to.
I was like, you have got to be kidding me. But it's the door that opens the back door to get back into your system. So anytime you're connected, they can use any device to come back in to get back to the original source.
How would you protect your smart toothbrush and your smart refrigerator?
Well, the thing is you want to be able to have your system set up so that you have it set up so that it's on the system itself that the toothbrush is connected to. So, like I said, they're looking. So this is going to be the next wave of where they're going to be coming into, where you're going to have your car, you're going to have your refrigerator, you're going to have your smart TV. I never even knew there was such a thing as a smart toothbrush. Honestly, God didn't. But it was somewhere, I think it was in Netherlands or someplace in Europe. Scandinavia, it was one of the Scandinavian countries. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even heard of such a thing. But I'm going, a toothbrush? I mean, but this is what they do.
It's a back door. But
so
is it that people are just using the Bluetooth to connect all these things versus connecting directly into their Wi-Fi system?
I think part of it is, yes. But when you're doing the smart TV, it's connected to your Wi-Fi system. So if you got it on your system, you're going to protect your smart TV. The problem is the refrigerator, it depends on how it's connected as to whether or not it's part of your, if it's just connected Wi-Fi and it's not running through through the TV and through your other devices, it's just strictly Wi-Fi, it's exposed. So they're going to start coming out with protection to block it so that you have the same protection on your refrigerator that you have on your smart TV, that you have on your computers, and you have on your phones and all the other devices. So technology is wonderful, but like I said, there's cars being hacked daily.
Yeah.
And it's scary because you can cause a major wreck to shut the power off on the car, going down a
Yeah.
freeway at 70 miles an hour, and you're all of a sudden you lose power, and the guy behind you just slams right into you.
Right. That's scary. So this right there, what you just brought up, is another reason why people need to have a trusted tech support person.
Yep,
They need,
absolutely.
they might not have had a need for it, but you should always have that person that you trust, because they can usually do things remotely, which means they're going to have to get into your system.
Right.
But it's, you can use them even when you don't have a problem. But even you're like, oh, I'm getting a new smart TV. Can you help me make sure it's connected the right way? So
Exactly.
it's safe. I'm getting a new refrigerator, this fancy new refrigerator that's out, that I can talk to it, right? And all
Yeah,
of this stuff. And I need you to make sure it's right connected. The toothbrush, that it's connected the right
right.
way. So this is another valuable reason why you need to have that trusted tech support person. It's not just for your computers, it's for your mobile phone, it's for your laptops. Like you said, anything that's online, and smart TVs, smart toothbrushes, smart refrigerators, cars, all that stuff is
Well, even
online.
your home security systems with cameras can
True.
be hacked.
Yeah. Cameras. Yeah. Yeah. So, I
And
mean, it's crazy, right?
yeah,
But
you
I
when
think,
you make a list, it blows your mind.
oh, absolutely. When you just said smart toothbrushes, it's like, wow.
Yeah, I honest
Coming
to God,
up
I
with
was like, you have got to be kidding me. I didn't
it,
even know such a thing existed.
that you could say, okay, toothbrush, start brushing my front
Yeah,
top teeth,
I
you
don't know
know.
how it works. I honestly God don't.
I don't
It
either.
just blew me away that they were talking about this. I'm going, toothbrush? It's like, what are we going to, is it gonna, are you gonna have well, if we're going robotics and you're gonna have a robot in your house, you're gonna have the same issue. It can
Well,
be
that's
hacked.
true. Right. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
like anything that works off of a signal is
Right.
going to have the ability to be hacked, and there's going to be people out there that are going to go after it, and because they know it's an easy way to get information.
All right. We have to wrap it up here.
Okay, problem.
So the big thing is that people need to do their research, and they
They
need to make
do.
sure they know what they're getting, but they need to have this software to protect themselves, and have your trusted tech support person.
It's
So,
absolutely.
all right.
The,
Well, thank you,
the,
Lynn.
when you
I
have that tech support, it's the best money you'll ever spend. I'm serious,
yes. Yes.
because
No,
they will
absolutely.
save you a ton of grief and
Yes.
it'll save you thousands of dollars.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Lynn, and we'll have you back to talk about something else.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Take care.
Take care.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. Get your malware and antivirus and EDR in place on all your devices. Have that trusted tech support person. It's going to help you with anything that is connected. All of these devices and TVs and Alexas and refrigerators and toothbrushes now too. So don't forget, go to roseadvocacy.org for more resources, find our social media links, and sign up for our newsletters. We send one via email and one in the mail. Until next time, thank you for joining us.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.